All right, folks, welcome back to the channel for another doubles pro-am disc review. Well, I will be your am, and Matt Givens here will be your pro. Make sure you follow Matt Givens down below. He puts out some good content on Instagram and YouTube and such, and he also does lessons in the Mobile area if you're in the area or you don't mind traveling. Definitely a guy who can help out your game. He's helped me out for sure. Well, we kind of have a little bit of a special disc review today. This one is actually courtesy of a friend of the channel, and that is Eric Oakley. And we are testing out a disc that he's been super excited about because he helped design this disc with Clash Disc, and that is, of course, this is the Spice, which is kind of beefy, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, definitely a beefcake. I want to say the numbers were 10304.
10303, I think.
03, something like that. Either way, beefy. So that's the takeaway.
Yeah, and one thing I want to mention here at the top. We did not get a chance to throw the prototype Spice, which came out, I think, in the Clash holiday mystery box or something like that. But from what I understand from talking to people who have thrown both, and just based on what I have seen on videos for both, apparently the prototype Spice was a little bit more of a straight flyer than this one. This one is apparently considerably more overstable than the prototype, or at least a touch more overstable, which will definitely be more noticeable to people with lower arm speeds. I think people with higher arm speeds won't notice it as much, but it's just worth noting that this stock one is a little more overstable than the prototype, but it has a similar shape and feel. And we'll compare it to a couple of throwback Eric Oakley favorites so that you can kind of get a feel for how the Spice flies.
All right, so we're gonna, in comparison, compare a couple of Eric Oakley felons. So this is a 2019 Lucid X, and we also have a 2021 Lucid X. We also have an infinite disc slab, which is a touch faster. So the felons are 9 speeds and the slab's 11 speed. So we'll get both sides of the spectrum there. And obviously, like I said, the two Spices are 10 speeds. So we're gonna start out with the felons first. I'm gonna throw one of them just flat, and then the other one I'll give it a little bit of ante. I'll be throwing backhands. I think Dustin's gonna be throwing forehands for the most part. So yeah, let's do it. Let's start with the 2019. A little bit early, a little bit low. You can still see the stability there. Hopefully I can show you that a little bit better with this one. I'm gonna get a little bit more height, a little bit more turn.
Trust me, the 2019 run of Lucid X Felon has made many people feel less mortal, so don't feel bad. Beef.
Yeah, gave that one more height and even a substantial amount of turn. You couldn't really see it, but it definitely got a lot of finish to it. So let's compare that to the slab. Like I said, touch faster, so it'll probably go a little farther, hold a little longer. Same deal. You can see that one definitely holds straight longer, but still has that finishing stability. Now let's see the Splices.
Spices, you said Splice.
Sorry, Spices, no L. Different company. I said this one gonna be flat, and the other one I'm gonna throw ante. Got some forward penetration on that one, but definitely dumps at the ends. A little more forward penetration than that 2019 Felon than we saw. Let's see how it holds up to some off-axis torque. That one had a really nice line, held over a lot longer than say the Felon did, so can definitely be a little bit more shaped in the woods. Let's go see the distances and I'll kind of compare from that. All right, so after going and picking them up and shooting them distance-wise, the first Felon I threw came out a little early, a little low to be fair, came out around 315 feet, whereas the Spice that I threw, flat went out to about 340, 345, so definitely illustrates a little bit more forward push, maybe a touch more than you actually would because they weren't exactly the same throw, but you could still see it just from the flights. And as for the ones I threw on ante, the 2021 Felon that I threw came out to about 360 feet, and that was the one that had a substantial amount of ante but just kind of dumped out really fast. And the slab was the farthest at right under 400 feet, but I would attribute this to more of a distance driver slot, something that's just kind of stable, fights the wind, rather than a utility disc, which is what these other ones are. And the Spice came out at right at 390 feet, so had more forward penetration, but also fought all the wind and the anhyzer, the off-axis torque. So definitely a more forward penetrating disc than the Felons.
Yeah, I think that was his whole goal with this disc, was to have the dependability of what his Lucid X Felons used to have as far as like fade and headwind fighting and things of that nature, but have a little bit more forward push. So looks like in the pro's hands, it does exactly what he wants.
Yep.
All right, so I'm gonna throw some forehands, because if I throw backhands with these discs, they're gonna go about 175 feet. They're gonna go really far to the left, and that's about all you're gonna get out of it. So we're gonna try something a little different. I'm gonna throw a normal Orbit Felon from this year, just like a little bit of a straighter Felon in comparison to some other runs. Then I have the same Lucid X Felons that we saw Mac throw. This one's a little less overstable than this one, but they're pretty close. Then I have the two Spices. We do have a pretty substantial like tailwind right now, so they will even probably fly a bit more stable than they normally would. So basically what I'm doing right now is making as many excuses as possible for like how not far these things go. So I think I've hit everything else. Maybe my elbow's a little sore, you know, look like my wrist feels a little tweaked, you know. So I'm not operating at 100%. I just want that to be very clear, okay? Is there anything else I left out, Mac? Besides being bad at the game, because that can't be it.
No, I think you hit all of
Okay, I just want to make sure. So, yeah, tail left to right. So this is like one of the more straight Felons, I guess you could say. Straight. Came out with like a touch of ante on it, no doubt about it, a little nose up as well, but definitely got the straight flight. Didn't have like crazy finish, which is what I expect from that Felon. Now we'll try the 2021 Lucid X. That one a touch lower. Regardless, it had considerable more fade, definitely more of a utility disc. And I already know what's gonna happen here. This is actually in my bag, and I only throw it like a handful of times. Tailwind and my elbow's a little tweaked, and you know, wrist not feeling, you know, right? Got it. Listen, y'all learned a lot from Mac. This is entertainment now. This is like the fun part of the show, you know? Well, what mere mortals do. I want to try the Spice, see what happens. She beefy still, you know? What can I say?
Give me some ante.
I'm gonna try.
Still
a little bit of ante, but a little nose up, so it kind of cancels each other out a little bit, but we'll go see. All right, so for distance, it's purple disc. What purple disc? I know what you're talking about. Straightest Felon that I threw went the furthest, only about 505 feet. You know, not quite where I thought. Mac, what do you think?
Mm-hmm.
No? Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
it actually went 285 feet, and that is legit. So that's about where my Felons go, kind of just under 300 feet. So got pretty much what I thought out of this. Now, interestingly enough, the Spice that I threw with a little bit of ante was actually only about 3 feet in front of that one. So it actually did get some decent forward push, despite the fact that it's a more overstable disc. But obviously I put it on more angle. That's a lot of the reason why I did that. But it just shows that it still has that potential, so that was kind of cool. Now this is what I actually found more interesting, because when I threw these two throws, I'm gonna tell you right now in my head, I'm like, I suck at this game. Why am I still playing disc golf? There's a lot of negative thoughts going on upstairs, okay? But an interesting insight that we learned was this one went about 240 feet, and obviously it was just straight beef, like just USDA certified Angus, like whatever you want to call it, beef, 240. Now remember, this disc flew visually about exactly the same, if you'll remember, but I kid you not, this went 15 feet more forward. So this was actually at 255 compared to 240 on this one. So despite the fact that they look the same and they flew the same, this one did get a little bit more forward push. So even me with, you know, spaghetti arm over here, I was able with the Spice to get a little bit more forward push because it is a touch faster than the Felon. When you compare them side by side, they look pretty similar, honestly, but this one is definitely a little bit faster. You saw it more dramatically in max throws, but even I, with my, you know, slower arm speed, still got a little bit of an advantage out of this as far as a little bit of extra distance.
It's that Wagyu beef.
All right, so let's give our final thoughts here on the Clash Disc Spice that was partnered with Eric Oakley, who helped create it. For me, with a lower arm speed, if I'm honest, with how overstable this thing is on a backhand, it's never really going to be more than a utility disc for me. And in that case, it's really not that much different for me personally than just throwing, pick your most overstable 9-speed that you want, you know, whether it be a Felon or like a Champ Firebird or whatever the case may be, an Omen maybe from Thought Space Athletics. It kind of had that vibe for me on a backhand. Even if I put on a bunch of ante, thing was still fighting out. So for a backhand, other than like skip shots and utility shots, I probably don't have too much use for this. But even as a lower arm speed guy, when it came to forehands, I get the same level of overstability on this disc as something like a Lucid X Felon, or again, just pick your overstable fairway driver of choice in that 9-speed range. But I get a little bit more forward push, whereas in the past I might sacrifice a little bit of finish by throwing a straighter forehand disc like that Orbit Felon that I threw. This one I can get a similar amount of forward push, but I can also get a little bit more fight out of it. And so in that sense, for forehands for me, it actually could serve a use for me on being able to just have that nice overstable utility shot, but get a little bit more forward push than one of my 9-speeds would be able to do. So that's kind of where I'm at. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, I would agree with that. When it comes to the lower arm speeds, like you said, it's really not going to make much of a difference which overstable disc you're going to go with. They're all going to go about the same distance. But when it comes to the higher arm speeds, I do think that this has some significant use in that I think you could attack off of the tee a lot more with this. Whereas with the super overstable Felons, for instance, that's going to be more of a utility. Maybe you need a big skip, you know, maybe you need to just really dump past a tree, something like that. Whereas this one, maybe you've got some sort of crazy headwind, but you still need to penetrate up to that 400-foot mark. I feel like this could be a really good choice for that. And if you're, you know, if you're not happy with your overstable Firebird Felon, whatever it may be, you think it's just a little too dumpy, doesn't get the distance you want, this could be a really good option for you to get a little bit more of that forward penetration. So definitely something to play around with if that's something you're struggling with in your bag.
Yeah, I think that this kind of did what Eric Oakley hoped to achieve, which was get the same kind of dependability of one of his past overstable, like fairway hybrid type drivers, but also still get a little bit more glide and forward push than maybe what some of those overstable utility discs used to provide him. So I think he hit the goal on the head. I just think that this stock release came out a little more overstable than the prototypes, and so in that case it is actually a little bit more beefy than maybe people were thinking. But again, at a higher arm speed, you know, if you're in that like advanced or pro level, and you can throw about 400 feet or so, you probably will get some good use out of this in comparison to a super overstable 9-speed. You get a tick more speed, same controllability, a little bit more forward push, and I even noticed it still on a forehand, so that was kind of nice. So yeah, shout out to Eric Oakley. We love you, buddy. Thanks for showing us these spices. And folks, I hope you enjoy the content. If you do, please follow and subscribe. Also, again, be sure to go follow up Mac. I'll put his links down below. Maybe hit him up for a lesson if you're in the area or don't mind traveling. And yeah, we'll see you next time.